What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Nick Williams Show. I'm Nick Williams. I'm an independent filmmaker and producer north of Boston. And today, I have Mr. Adam Newman on my show. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for driving down. So let's get the boring stuff out of the way. Can you give me who you are and where you're from and what you do?
Sure. So I'm...
Pull that in nice and close.
Nice and close. You got it. Okay. So I'm a writer, director, reluctant producer named Adam Newman, and I'm originally from southern New Hampshire, a little town called Sandown. I also
Nice area. I like Sandown. I've been there.
Oh, you've been there? Mm-hmm. You're the first. That's great.
Really?
Oh, so many people don't know about it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. Go ahead.
And I spent about the other half of my childhood in Newburyport, Mass, relatively close by.
Even nicer area.
Yeah, very, very nice. Back when it was affordable.
Right.
So yeah, I kind of grew up in that area. I've been writing and directing now for getting close to 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So it started a long time ago when I just got out of high school, and I had always wanted to be a writer, but for a while I was a playwright or novelist or something like that. Yeah. And so once I got out of high school, I saw the movie Magnolia, and that's when I went like, life has changed. I need to make whatever those things are.
Right.
And then I started pursuing it, and it's been, like I said, almost 20 years. I'm 37 now, so it's getting close to 20 years. And yeah, I've been chasing that, and now we're finally, I'm finally at a point where this is my full-time job, which is great, where I get to tell narrative stories. It took too damn long to get there. Mm-hmm. I spent a lot of time in other jobs. For a long time, I was remodeling kitchens and bathrooms, and for 7 years, I ran a golf course. But luckily, I was able to kind of get out of that, and I met a couple, co-creatives in Sean Ward and Topher Hansen, who wanted to start this company, Dreamscape Productions. And so that's kind of the origin story, I guess.
That's cool. Yeah, that's awesome, actually. So you're a member of Dreamscape Productions, which is out of...
It's based in Waterville Valley, New Hampshire. That's where our
I shot a wedding in Waterville Valley like 2 years ago.
I'm not surprised. It's a beautiful, beautiful place.
It is kind of like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like this... I mean this with all respect to Waterville Valley. I love it. I think it's beautiful, but it's a little culty. No? It's like this tiny little chunk of land up in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's where our film Round the Decay actually was filmed because of that.
Yeah.
It's because it's weird. You take this long 10-mile drive through the mountains. It's gorgeous.
And where you see nothing but mountains and everything.
No service. You see a little creek. That's about it. And then once you get there, it's this small hub. Mm-hmm. We're this nice little downtown. It's very quaint.
They have like a school and it's
like just there. It's less than 500 people year round live there. Yeah, so that's where our company was based out of. That's where our offices were for a long time. Wow. Right now, it's just a P.O. box over there because we're kind of scattered. I'm out in Newport, New Hampshire. Topher's over in Ringe, and then Sean bounces between Topsfield, Mass, and down in Naples, Florida. He kind of goes back and forward. So we can do a lot of this stuff remote because, so much of filmmaking is unfortunately pre-production and post-production, not actual production. But yeah, that's kind of where it's based out of. It came from, Sean and I met a long time ago when I was reaching out to find a location for free for a short I did called Nomad. And I just said, hey, I need a barn. Is there anything you can do? We have no money. And Sean responded with his headshot and said, put me in the movie, and you got yourself a location. And
that's cool.
Yeah, and so we ended up doing that, and then those 7 years of building a relationship where we kept, he's a really solid character actor. He knows exactly what he wants to do. And so we just kept putting him in productions, and he loves being on set. And eventually, he hired me to work up in Waterville Valley, actually working for a hotel and working in marketing for that. And one day, we were finishing up filming one of our movies, Everwinter Night, and he walked in, and he goes, what's it going to take for me to be a part of this production company? And I said, well, in order to finish this movie, it's another $20,000. And he goes, done. All right, now today is the day we start. Dreamscape Productions is today.
That's awesome.
It was incredible. I'm driving home.
Because it never happens that way either.
No, certainly not. And it's, I'm very lucky. I got to put it out there. But I also, so much of what we're doing right now, you and I are sitting here, we are talking, and hopefully we're establishing some type of connection, whether we use each other or
make no bones about, this is definitely a job interview in some respects. You know what I'm saying? And I don't mean that but I'm also a realist. So I can look past, it's not about who you are as a person. I want to hear, how you work, and if you like to work. Obviously, you have great films that you've made, and I've checked out. the Dreamscape Productions YouTube channel. There's a lot of stuff there. Also, the website's fantastic, and there's a lot of stuff there. But it's networking. I don't mean job interview like you're going to work for me, but we should work together on something.
1,000%.
And that's one of the reasons. I'm like a no fear kind of person.
Yeah.
So I'll reach out to anybody.
Oh yeah.
Josh Kirk actually referred you to me, and that's why I reached out.
It's so great. I've never met Josh, by the way.
Actually,
not in person. No.
Wow. He's very fun person. He's all over the place.
He's one of the few people I've ever seen that like matches me in speed of talking. The dude is. I've talked to him several times on the phone because we're currently talking about. He asked me to come on and produce something for him potentially, and so we're having conversations. Awesome. Yeah, he's great. But yeah, no, that's what I'm so glad about. And he got connected with me because of the guys over at the Film Stock podcast down in Rhode Island. You know, that's Matt Belt and Alex, I don't know how to say his last name, but everybody calls him Ace, and Sean over there. And so that's what's so great about this. And that's what's so great about what happened. That's how Dreamscape got made. It got made exactly the way it's supposed to, through relationships and through understanding each other and going like, hey, these people work really hard and they're doing the same thing that I want to be doing, you know, and it's so much easier to steer a ship when you have a bunch of people with oars rather than just yourself and you're spinning in a circle. So.
I would tend to agree. I also feel, now I have a question. Did you go to film school?
No.
Neither did I.
Yeah.
So, but I've worked, obviously, especially when you start off, when you don't have the budget to hire people that have 20 years experience, you end up hiring college kids and film students.
Oh, that's how I first formed my crew. Yeah.
Sure. And there's nothing wrong with hiring college kids either. My concern around the whole thing is that college, even though it's a collective environment, everybody is there focusing on their individual future. Because of that, which again is not a bad thing. Obviously, you have to focus on yourself, and you know nobody else is going to pay your bills for you. So you're focused on becoming. I always say everybody wants to be Spielberg in college.
Yeah.
But then when they get out into a set, into their respective roles, everybody still wants to be Spielberg. It can become a very too many cooks in the kitchen kind of situation.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, sometimes you have to bring the hammer down a little bit, and kind of, you know, be able to be the one that steers the ship. But that doesn't make any individual paddle or oar invaluable or not valuable, if that makes sense. Everybody is invaluable, or you don't have a movie, basically.
I think the thing I wanted to
please
over time, I just wanted to get over. Which the funny thing is, it was the complete opposite when I was growing up because I was so arrogant. I had such an ego, and so my thing was like, I am the master of this thing. And over time, your ego gets stripped away, especially in filmmaking when it's rejection and people saying this thing sucks or whatever it is. And like the auteur theory, I think is just bullshit. I think it's so crap.
Can you elaborate on that for people that don't know?
I think so many people tend to believe that the authorship of a film has, especially from earlier days, is that it has a sole voice, you know, and so that like the director is the person that is the only person communicating here, and that everybody else is serving their vision. And I want to get rid of that. I think it's so crap.
All right, so we may, and listen, it's okay. We can agree to disagree on certain things, and that's fine.
Sure.
On the side of, and I look at a lot of things from. I have to preface it by saying I have grip. I'm not a good grip by any stretch of the imagination. Same with PA. I'm way too opinionated for that. Sure. I'm also okay with taking on the responsibility, either whether it's financially or being the person who made a decision that if it was the wrong decision, people can come up to me and be like, this is your fault. I'm okay with dealing with that. You know what I mean? So when I look at it from the perspective of the one person kind of scenario, I don't like that they're the only person who gets like the credit.
Yep, that's exactly what I'm going.
At the same time, though, if something goes wrong, they are the people who have to pick up all the pieces. So it is a little bit of a give and take.
I agree with it for the most part. The thing is that what I try to do anytime, if anybody likes any of the movies and they come up and go like, great job, I try to give as much credit to everybody else because,
of course, sure.
Like the movie, you know, I'm a writer-director and I want to be a writer-director, and that's the biggest thing. And so obviously it's my story that I'm trying to get out there, but every person that you run into on a set has lived a life that you don't understand, and they're going to bring that towards the movie as well. And so, yeah, sometimes it's not the same thing because I'm the director. However, each, you know, if this is a canvas, I might be telling people where to put the paint, but ultimately sometimes they go off and they do this thing and I go like, oh my God, they're so much more skilled than I could have imagined. And everything that was in my head is nothing compared to what the beautiful thing that somebody else just created. Like you just said, a good grip has such value, a good gaffer, a good DP, all this
and
type
I don't
of
mean
stuff.
to dehumanize anybody when I say this. I really don't. But to me it's the equivalent of why there isn't just one style of brush that an artist can use.
Absolutely.
Like there's a million different brushes, and the to me, if you're using direct comparisons here with painting, I would say the actors are the colors, and the actors in the scenes are the colors, and then the grips and the PAs and everybody are your brushes.
Yep.
But the director, still has to be the one that like puts all the stuff in the right spots. So, and if you have a crappy painting, nobody goes, well, you used the wrong brush.
No, and as I think the big thing has always been as a writer-director, accepting the responsibility when it comes to that. I'm always going to be the one that takes the blame when it comes to it, especially because I will have final say on a lot of these things too, especially the way that we do, or at least we've operated recently, where it's, we have decent budgets, but they're not huge budgets. We don't have a lot of hands in the jar, so to speak. So the final cut is me. And so if something doesn't work, I'm willing to
Do you edit your films as well?
No. Oh, no. You couldn't pay me to do it. I can't edit.
Interesting.
I can't sit in a room and do it. It's too tedious for me. It just doesn't work. I'm very lucky that Topher Hansen, the guy who works at Dreamscape with me, I'm very, very good at pre-production. I'm so good at getting something rolling. It's probably the only skill I truly have is I can get a project going, which so many people are terrified of doing it. I can really do that, and I can get people excited about it. I can't do post. I'm really, really poor, especially at the editing and all that type of stuff. Now, once we have an assembly...
We're going to have Topher on now, too.
Yeah, no, definitely.
That's one thing I haven't had on, and if you're out there listening and watching this, which a lot of people do, thankfully, and I appreciate that, I need an editor. I want to have someone who's just a producer come on, but definitely an editor because I haven't had that on yet, and I have a lot of directors. Everybody's a director these days.
I'll have to bring Topher because Topher comes from a directing and acting background, but most of the work that he does now is in post, and it's both as an editor and as a colorist.
Nice.
And so, which is great. It's great that we have that all packaged together. So I know that I have to take the weight when it comes to pre-production. The two of us cross over beautifully at production.
Yep.
And then in post, he does a lot of the heavy lifting. Now, I don't want to say that that's, he edits it and we're done. It's, hey, we do the rough cut. I watch the rough cut. I give,
of course.
1,000 notes. Then eventually we're watching the rough cut, or not the rough cut, we're watching now a more polished cut together, doing, those 12-hour days back to back to back when we're getting into the nitty-gritty. But in terms of the assembly, I don't have it in me. I can't. And also, this is probably one of the negatives about me, is that once a project is done, once we have shot it, right, and on set it's war, it really isn't. By the end, you're like, most of the time, you're exhausted. The day after, I will fall into a deep depression if I don't start writing the next thing. So my goal is like script is the next script. I get one day off in between, which is basically where I fall into the Great Depression and be like, why am I not on set? Why am I not on set every day of my life? And then that next day I go, okay, what's next? And then I start mining all of my old notes. I have 1,000 Google Docs, and it's just like finding any little kernel that will stick out and start writing something. It might not be the thing I make next, but I need to write. I need to write constantly. And so that kind of makes it easier for me. And then once we get to that final stage, I probably hate the movie at that point. Almost all movies that I've ever been on, that's where it's not mine anymore. It doesn't feel like mine anymore. It's when we get to that edit, I've seen it 1,000 times, and I do believe that every movie that exists outside of mine was only made for me. I have this like very, very selfish way of being like...
Explain that. What do you mean?
So like every film that you have ever seen, right, has been created for an audience, right? But like that, it feels like it's a very personal situation where an artist is going like, here, I'm holding out my hand. Would you like to accept?
I love that.
And I want to come back. Now, sometimes a movie, and I don't agree, and I'll be like, no, and I'll slap their hand away, or I'll pull back, or whatever it is, but they're trying to make a personal connection. Now, I write whatever movie I write for whatever reason, right? There's a ton of reasons why it's going on, whatever's going on internally, all that type of stuff, what genres I'm interested at that time. By the time we get it out of the birth canal, it's not my movie anymore. It's your movie. It's Josh's. Yeah. I mean, it's a messy business.
Sure.
But after that, it's your movie, and it's Josh's movie. It's everybody else's movie.
Yeah.
I don't get a say as to what it is anymore. And now I'm the artist going like, here's my hand. Are you interested? And so I don't know anymore when it comes to it if I like the movie or if I don't like the movie. I've seen it 1,000 times, but I
think that would
come
come a good way to assess that. Is, are you still trying to get other people to look at it?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good way of doing it. And
because if you don't like it, like if I'm not any sort of by trade. I'm an artist,
sure,
painter and drawing and sculpting and stuff like that in my free time. Sure, obviously not something that I do for my income. Part of the reason I do this show is the in-between projects thing. I also get very depressed when I'm not doing things, and specifically when I'm not doing things with media. And thankfully, this is only an hour a week, and I have commercial work that takes up the rest of the week. Josh is also an artist, has a degree in art, much more than myself. But regardless, I feel like there are definitely things that I've made when I was very young.
Sure.
That I would. I mean, if you see it, great. I'll laugh and blush, but I'm not showing them to anybody.
Oh, sure.
And then there are things that I've made, and that's true for things that I've made even during my career as a filmmaker, where I'm like, this just wasn't the right thing. It's not right. It didn't come out the way I wanted it to, or I'm not skilled enough to pull off the size of story that I thought. I'm talking about earlier on.
Yeah, of course.
Those are movies, and even then, I feel like I'm just not doing the art itself a service by putting out crap. Does that make sense?
Oh, sure.
So that would be an example, at least for me, of where I'm like, where I don't like it anymore.
I think
I get the same fatigue, is what I'm saying. I get the same fatigue when it comes to filmmaking and a certain project that you've like. It doesn't matter how many ways you cut it. It doesn't matter. Like, you've lived it. You were on set. I'm an editor. That's how I got started with camera work in general when I was like 11 years old. So, editing to me is it's the final frontier.
Sure,
if that makes sense.
Sure.
And then at the end of that, I'm like, I don't want to watch it anymore.
Yeah.
But I still want other people to watch it.
Oh, 1,000%.
And if that's the case, then even if I hate the production itself, or if I'm fatigued, I like that word.
Yeah.
If I'm tired of that production specifically, I still like it.
That's fair. And the thing is, I think once I get the movie out, and so we got the movie. Round the Decay is our most recent film, and we got that out. Basically, we had a premiere in October of last year, and the first time I viewed it with a
is it a feature?
Yeah,
it's called Round the Decay.
Yeah, I only make features now.
Nice.
That's my goal.
Listen to this guy. Good for you.
The shorts are cool, but I don't watch shorts unless they're for my friends, like filmmakers that I trust and respect, and they go, "Here's my short," and I go, "Cool," and I watch it. I consume everything in feature form.
Sure.
And so, it's the thing I study. It's the way I know how to pace things. It's all that type of stuff. It comes from a wild arrogance too, which is that I didn't understand how feature films were made when I was young, and so I just went they're cheap and they're easy. You just grab a camera and you shoot, and it's incredible.
To an extent, you could.
Yeah, no, of course. And eventually you just kind of learn. I have the same level of projects. I have, Dreamscape Productions, and then I had a company called But It Did Happen Productions, and before that I was part of a group, a duo called Adam and Steve. And I really hope nobody ever sees those movies because it's the same thing. I'll blush. I learned so much on the sets of them. But ultimately it's I'm not that artist anymore. I'm bigger and better than that. But
You're evolved.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think after every single movie, the good news is I do come back to
now.
Yeah, it feels, but I still feel like I'm a big kid. It still feels like what's cool is I'm getting paid to do this, and we're making movies with a certain budget. So I feel like at the very least I'm in the minor leagues. No, I'm not Spielberg or anything like that, but I'm playing the same sport. Whereas back in the day, it was okay, we're kind of playing t-ball here. You know what I mean?
Well, sure, but you have to play t-ball before you get to the major leagues.
You have to play t-ball before you play your elementary school, before you play high school, before all this stuff. I completely agree. I think I come out of every project. The good news is over time, I'll go back to them. There's a movie I made for $2,000 a feature years ago. And it's very rough around the edges, but it's called Ice Patrol. Every now and then I'll jump back on and watch it. And of course, it's shot with a T3i.
It's John Waters style.
Yeah, but like
you and a camera.
Right. But like we learn so much. And also I watched the movie and I'm like, let's pretend that the visuals are there in terms of, not in terms of shot composition, that's all there. Sure. It's really in terms of like the picture quality because we weren't ready yet. If all of that was there, this is a great story and I feel really good about it. But it took years. And it's the same thing with like Round the Decay. I finally got to watch Round the Decay with like an audience who was with a small audience, and I finally went like, oh, this movie's good, and I feel good about it. That's probably the only time I'm ever going to feel good about it ever again, or for at least for another 2 or 3 years before I come back to it again. And after every movie too, like I said, I think I want to get back on set and want to write something new, partially because I'll go crazy if not, because there's that depression that seeps in. But it's also because I go like, no, I learned everything on the last set. I like, now I'm going to be better. I need to show exactly how I'm not going to mess everything up. Because every movie is you get on set and you try to plan as much as you possibly can, and then everything goes wrong, right? And you're just trying to fix problems constantly. That's all it is constant problem solving. Smallest things, color choices when it comes to someone's jacket versus, oh my God, the camera got broken. What do we do now? Those type of things, which did happen on Round the Decay. And so it's a lot of those, but you start going like, oh, okay, if I was able to make another movie, I know all the problems that I had before. This one would be so much better. If you gave me the same budget again, I'll make something significantly better. And you see all the flaws from editing a project 1,000 times, right? You're going over and over and over, and you go like, man, I could have avoided these problems in the first draft of the script or somewhere else down the line. And so I'm constantly thinking, I think it's the John Huston quote, which is like, you make a movie, you put a picture frame around it, and then it's done. Then you move on. And then after that, you just keep doing that until you die. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I feel like every step is progress. Even if the budget goes down, it's still progress because
the skill level doesn't go down.
Thank you, exactly.
And everything's an experience.
I think people get terrified of that, though.
Oh my God! Even at the level that I'm at now, where supporting myself, run a production company, do a whole bunch of stuff. I still do stuff for free all the time.
Yeah, of course.
Like I don't care. It's because to me, the project is what attracts me.
Oh, 1,000%.
And I just had a conversation recently with a friend of mine who I was saying, you may have a certain like day rate, right?
Yep.
Whatever it is. If the production or the project itself is very good to you, and they don't, and they have half your day rate, I'm the person that's saying put that toward crafty. Like it's almost it's you're not covering me, so it doesn't matter. I'm willing to sacrifice and be a part of this. So let's just do it and put the money towards something that you need, as opposed to just saying you have me there on set. When I'm going to be on set being like, well, do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this? And if you don't because you paid me, I'm pissed.
That's such a great way of looking at it too. And, I know so many people in the industry because I'm lucky, like I said, I'm a writer-director and I'm getting this salary, which is very cool. But so many of these people, I get it because they're working day rates and that's all they can do. However, this seems like, like my DP, he goes and does commercial jobs where he charges double, sometimes triple what he charges us because he wants to work on features. But in order to work on features, he works on the commercial jobs, which get him the bigger chunk of money so that he can come and do our thing for a third of his budget or for a third of his rate, rather. So I completely agree. And you have to find a way to make it work. And that's why I also like making connections in this thing, too, is once you become friendly with people, everybody, the thing is that we want to create things. That's the dollar value is so high for that.
The thing that's confusing to me, and nothing against you at all,
Sure.
But just in general, like there seems to be it's like a double-edged sword. So you have, on the one side, you have people that are supporting themselves and making money and they get a day rate or whatever it is. And then on the other side, you have people that say that they're artists. And what is annoying to me in general is when those two things combine, because they don't really combine.
It's such a difficult one.
It's like when those two mindsets cross over, you have people that are so arrogant that they won't work on things if there's no money involved. And on the other side of it, they preach that they're an artist who loves to create things, and they're upset at the industry for not making things. And I look at that, I go, so make something.
Yeah,
what are you talking about? If you're good at what you do, or if you make something that appeals to a mass audience or whatever it is, the money will be there.
Yep.
Whether you like it or not.
Right.
And fame and stuff like that is not a reason to make movies, in my opinion.
Oh, I think that goes away quickly. I think that the people that try to do it
One would think.
Unless I would figure that you have to have success quickly.
Sure. I just, when it comes to, like, there are a lot of people who, and again, there's nothing wrong with anybody,
Sure.
it's just, it is, and I'm not naming names, it's not the kind of person I am.
Sure.
But like, people will invest in a lot of equipment, say, and then they'll think that they have to, like, it just makes me wonder, like, why did you invest in that equipment?
Yeah, I agree.
Why do you buy all this stuff? Why do you whatever? And like, if the only reason is to make money, then you're not an artist, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You're not somebody who cares about making movies, which is what I got into this for. Now, I may not be a multimillionaire ever, or or for a great while, and I'm okay with that because I like making movies, and I'm very good with producing. I am the great negotiator.
Sure.
When people say things like, I need this location, and the guy is just being a pain. Boom, I'm right there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, every organization, getting people, problem solving and being solution based, and like, okay, but you'll have two people fighting about something. You go, wait, but our main goal is to make a movie, right? I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page because we're all trying to make something, correct? Okay, good. Can we just get back to that for a minute? We'll talk about the fight after. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like, it's very that, and it's yes, it's collaborative, but when you deal with a bunch of artists, you have a ton of different personalities.
Oh, yeah.
Like an example would be like two actors who absolutely hate each other in real life, and they're supposed to be in love on a set.
Yeah.
So that's something that I always like to. I'm good at, like, okay, let's everybody stop. Enough of this. Let's get back to the main focus and continue. Ready, go. It's like, it's that. And I don't know. I love this industry, and I love what we do, and I love the people that I get to meet through stuff like this.
Yeah. No, I really love what you said about it. It is tough when it crosses between job and art, because unfortunately we want to be paid to do this thing, but at the same time, where do you draw that line? And everybody's line is a different place.
There's a certain arrogance, right? And what I mean by that is, a lot of times, the writers strike, the directors strike. Those times, right?
Yeah.
So before that, Massachusetts, as an example, has fantastic tax incentives for making films, and that's part of the reason I still live here and didn't move back out to LA when I started this company.
Sure.
I love it here. This is my home. This is I love the people. I love the characters from Boston and all over the place. You know, and I got into this with the intention of making movies. I left a $250,000 a year job to make movies, because the $250,000 a year job was 120 hours a week working in finance that I hated, and I had zero quality of life, and I left that in order to pursue something that I enjoy doing. So there is, for me, a personal, I don't want to say disgust, but there I get it. We all have to pay bills. Nobody wants to live under a bridge. I'm not an idiot, when it comes to that stuff. At the same time, during the writer's strike and the director's strike, when nothing is getting done and nobody's getting paid, that level of, and again, I'll call it arrogance. When nobody's making anything and you say, "Hey, do you want to make something?" They go, "Well, I charge $550 a day."
Yeah.
But nobody's making anything right now, and I don't have any money, and I still want to make stuff because I'm an artist. So can we make this?
Right.
And they're like, "No," and then they'll go complain that they're not, they don't have any work, and they're not making anything. And I'm going, don't you realize that if we made something cool, like, the money would come?
Right.
Like, why don't we just put all that behind us for a second and like realize that we're all just a bunch of naked monkeys running around? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what are we talking about here?
Right.
Let's do something cool. Let's create something that the world will see value in, and if they see value, they'll pay for it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I think it's hard for some people to see through that, though, because it does involve so much patience. I think that's probably what I have to assume that's got to be the case, because, my biggest goal.
I'm talking about on this level, not when you're making like Mission Impossible 7.
Of course.
I'm talking about indie films.
Yeah. No, I do completely agree. And that's why we try to find, every movie we try to bring in new people. Of course, we always want to bring in new people. We try to do 50%. We try to do 50% of the people that we've worked with in the past, and 50% new, to try to bring some new people in. And we're just trying to find people that strike the balance properly. It's like you just said, we know you got to pay the bills. Makes sense. If you're working another job and you have to come to set, which takes you away from that job, I get it that you have to make somewhere near-ish to what you're making. I get it. However, I like people that treat movies the way that it sounds like you do as well, which is like, I don't consider it a hobby. It's like it's food, air, and movies. Like I can't not make them. It's an essential. It's part of my being. If I don't do it, I will die. It feels like that. And I do like creating an environment on set of people that feel that same way. And especially even people that are getting paid, like my DP is Mike McGillnick. And
that doesn't mean, by the way, that I don't pay people.
No, of course. Yeah.
I'm just saying, all right, go ahead.
So Mike McGillnick is my DP, and, he has a decent day rate, but also, like, Mike McGillnick will kill himself for a shot. He will he will die for it and he'll be
to
like,
the extent that I'm sure at some points you have to be like, okay, Mike, it's okay.
Yes, exactly. Like when I'm the one that's saying like, we don't need to win this battle. We'll win another one down the line. He's
Let's
like,
win the war.
Yeah, exactly. I mean? But when he's willing to fight for that battle, you go like, I have the right guy in my corner. I have somebody here that he's not thinking. Yeah, he needs to say right. Yeah, he gives a shit about the project, and that's so important. It's really tough to get. The bigger your crew and cast, the harder it is to get every person to buy into that. But our biggest goal is just like find the most amount of people possible. And the people that we keep bringing back are the people that we know are like that. They care about the project. They care about what we're doing.
Well, and that's the thing too. I feel like you walk that fine line, and it's definitely size of crew and
of course,
production dependent. I would say, because if you have 50 people on a crew, the 10 PAs that are there, they don't care about the script. And they don't have to. I'm not saying that they should or shouldn't. But it's like you have to respect them. So just because this is your baby and you're okay working a 17-hour day instead of a 12-hour day, they're not. You know what I mean? They're not. So I agree with you 100%. Yeah. And it is, but it's on both sides. So you have the one side where people are like, ooh, 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 and then on the other side, you got people that are like, let's just keep going. And people are like, I'm one of those people. I need lunch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a fine line.
No, I definitely agree. But what you just said about the PAs too is like, we try to recognize the talent too. So we had somebody, his name's Brady Lyons. He was on our last set.
That's awesome.
He's a college kid. And he was like, I'll come in PA and I'll do it. I will volunteer my time. It's just worked around my class schedule. And anytime someone says that, especially someone who wants to be a filmmaker one day, we go, yep, you're on board. And Brady shows up.
Give him a shot, sure.
Yeah, and the guy busted his ass. And now we think, what can Brady do next? Where do we bump him up so that he can make a little bit of money and can work on our productions? And how do we make sure that when his time comes, that he's going to make something, that we're supporting him? Because he showed up and gave everything that he had to this movie, to the point where not only is he's being a PA, but he's filling in at other positions. Hey, our second AC is not around. Can you play second today? And he plays second. And it's okay, not only that, we don't have one of the actors for the reshoots. Can you throw a wig on and can you run? And that's what he ends up doing. And so those people, you have to find those people, and then you just...
People that like making movies.
Yeah, we call it the merry band when it comes to our group, or the island of misfit toys. And it's like whenever we recognize it, we're like animals. We can sense it, we can smell it, and we're like, that person, they're with us forever. We latch them in, and they can try to drag themselves out, but we're going to pull them back in. And so the biggest thing is finding that environment and trying to build the biggest cast and crew you accumulated. Not that you're going to work with everybody all the time on every project,
right?
But having these people,
the Rolodex.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope that they feel the same way when it comes to me, supporting them.
Sure.
If it was, I have an actress named Victoria Mirror who's been in like almost all of my stuff for the past 7 or 8 years, and now she's becoming an intimacy coordinator. And my thing is like, I will find you work. That is because you have been so supportive of us. And I know that this is a position that's up and coming. Very few people even know much about it. Let's find a way to help you get work there. Also help you get work acting. I send her, hey, these people are looking for somebody. That's the big thing. Support each other. Sure. Care about the thing. Make cool stuff. Sometimes it doesn't work. That's okay. It's okay to stumble. Then just learn from it and make something good after that,
Sure. Yeah. I think early on in my filmmaking career, I was... I was definitely a little crazy. And it's because, I definitely came from an environment that was not art-based.
Okay.
It was finance-based.
Yeah, very
so
different.
Everything, like I remember punching out or timing out, whatever it was, at 1:28 in the morning. Sure. And telling my boss, like, wow, this is crazy. I've been here since, 7 a.m., and having him say to me, thank God there's 24 hours in the day. We'll see you at 7 tomorrow. And so when I went into this, I had the same mentality. Like, I don't care. I'll keep going. Why doesn't everyone want to keep going like that? Crazy, like just insane. And so that you have to learn, you have to know a lot about communication and a lot about people and realize that like you're a complete weirdo But so am I.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you think that there are we're artists. Go name 5 painters, of today that aren't totally bizarre people.
Oh yeah.
So you're dealing with tons of weird personalities, weird in the best way, weird in a positive way. But you may not realize that it's weird in a positive way when you first meet these people.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I'm good at, not to toot my own horn, I actually don't like talking about myself at all, which is why I like having guests on. One thing that I am pretty decent at is identifying strengths and weaknesses and moving the people around like chess pieces. And being like, you're really good at this. I need you to work on this. And then it's just like butter. It's so smooth. Everything is perfect. And it's like, yes.
I look at it like, because I was before I wanted to be a writer, I wanted to be an NFL player, and so
nice.
I know, and you've seen me. I'm not very tall, and anytime I got hit, my bones would explode. Yeah, and so, but I love football and I love team building and stuff like that.
I love football too.
Okay, you do.
Left side tackle. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay,
Offense.
okay, great.
Yeah, all day, man.
And so I always think about it. Being New England here, we think about Bill Belichick or something like that, and how he was able to find people from different teams that were used improperly. So they were like, hey, this person was drafted to rush the passer, but they made him drop into coverage all the time. And Bill Belichick takes him and goes, oh, I see that you're a good pass rusher. You're going to be our third down pass rusher, and that is it. And I think that is a skill. You have to learn it over time on sets. But
absolutely.
When you see somebody excelling at something, and also one of the things that's great about when you excel at something and when you're good at it, people give you feedback that you're good at it and it feels good. And so when you see somebody excelling at something, you go, okay, that person, I can tell that they're in love with that. We need to make sure that we support that. It happened on set when we made our film Ice Patrol years ago, and this, like I said, it was like $1,000 movie, and we basically just stuck a guy on sound, like you do in the old days when you're young, and we just kept catching him looking at the lighting, and as he's starting to figure it out, and one of the scenes we ended up losing one of our grips for the day. He's like, hey, can I step in and just do the lights real quick? And I went, all right, so he's our grip going forward. I got it. Okay.
Right.
Because you can tell that he latches onto it. And then all of a sudden that becomes his career. And then when it becomes...
that's the thing, yeah.
Yeah, and so it goes and becomes his career, and he comes up with his day rate. And then when we come back to him, he goes, of course I'll work for your thing for half the cost because I care about the thing. You help me, and that time I'll help you in this time. So... yeah, I think that's what it's mostly about, is finding where people are good at things, supporting them in that situation. This is why I don't like the auteur thing, is because, yes, I'm the painter, but there are so many brushes and so many colors, and it's like if all of them do their job right, which my job is just to make sure that they do their job right.
Yeah,
then we can have a beautiful painting.
I totally agree with you. That's so cool. Okay, so I'd like to kind of go into something that a lot of filmmakers don't talk about. I feel like this is not this, but the filmmaking community, indie film, maybe just in New England, maybe just the people I know. There's a culture of it's all about the making of, as opposed to the product itself and what you do with it afterward.
Okay. Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah.
So, and it really bugs me a little bit because there's a lot of work and it's very labor intensive on the front end, whether it's pre-pro or production or post, and then everyone just talks about the next thing. And I'm like, okay. But you currently have films in theaters and have put films in theaters before.
Yes.
And you don't work in Hollywood. You don't work for Warner Brothers.
That's correct.
Dreamscape maybe someday will be the new Warner Brothers. That'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be wonderful.
Yep.
WillCo would be right there with you, hopefully. Universal, whatever it is.
Sure.
But my point, though, in talking about this stuff is so we just, in the beginning, we talked about how you are very attached to your projects, and then to the extent that you might hate them afterward.
Sure.
But how do you take that and market it and move it on to, what's that next step like? Because a lot of people don't even think about it, and I feel like it's extremely important.
I agree.
So once you have a finished film, what do you do? What's Dreamscape's process, or your process?
So this is what it's been recently. I do think that, I think we were talking a little bit beforehand about how Hollywood is dying, and so I do.
No, I think it's dead.
Yes,
dead and ready for viewing.
I was going to say it's probably, if anything, it's like you can just barely see the pulse in the throat, and it's gasping out.
And anyone who says otherwise is ignorant. Go ahead.
I do think that there will, movies will still exist, and I still think that they're going to exist at the theater, and I just think it's going to be constantly changing, especially with how how fast things are going. AI is going to be something that we have to deal with in some fashion.
I don't think we can use it as a tool.
Yeah, we were talking about it a little earlier, and it is a tool, but if you use a tool wrong, it becomes a weapon. You know, I don't want that to be the case. These are all things that we're going to have to deal with, and things are going to change dramatically, for sure. So whatever I say now, understand that we're also adapting at the same time, because, you know, like 2 years ago, Tubi was a gold mine, and now Tubi is not a gold mine. It has completely changed, and so streaming has changed completely. What our process is, though, is that our big thing is we get through the film and we try to make things relatively quickly, just because we want to make sure they get out. Round the Decay was shot in April of, I don't remember now. Last year. It was last year.
24.
Yes, April 24. We had a premiere in October. We hit theaters in January 31st. That's with a 3-person team doing pre-production and post. So our thing is get it through as quickly as we possibly can. Obviously, understanding quality is a big part of it. So once the movie is gotten complete, our steps, at least for Round the Decay and what we're trying to potentially do further down, are now's the time for independent films to get into theaters. We think there's a hole there. It's tough.
Yeah.
It sucks. It's very difficult to do.
Well,
but
you're dealing with people like theaters, whether they're franchise. Not to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Whether you're dealing with franchises or independently owned theaters, you're dealing with people that are used to a system that is borderline obsolete. And again, it's the same as the people that claim to be artists and then won't do work unless there's the full day right there. I would say that the theaters are dying because people aren't going to the theater, especially after COVID, everything changed.
It really did.
But at the same time, when you go in and say, hey, listen, I have a movie for you that might be interesting. Maybe we try this one out. And they're like, well, you know, and
that's exactly what you get, because that's what we did for Round the Decay.
You should send me in there, kid.
So we called, I believe our number was close to 2,000 screens across the country.
Sure.
We called, tried to get into. Now, I do feel bad for some of these people because their industry is dying and they don't know what to do. And so
maybe they should accept more indie films.
You would hope so, yeah. And
if you're dying, listen, when you're dying, right?
Yep.
People that are afraid, and this is a dark analogy, but go with me on this. People that get terminal cancer and they are told by their oncologists and doctors, like, listen, no matter what we do, we're just trying to make you comfortable. You got 6 months, as an example.
Yeah.
Those people go to, skydiving, or they go out and they go to Italy for that time. They've been saying, oh, I'm going to go to Italy for years, and they never do. And then they got 6 months to live and they go, I'm going to Italy.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. So if you're really on the outs, why not throw everything you have at the wall and see what sticks?
I
or just close up.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I do also think that they're probably a little bit traumatized just based off of what we've kind of experienced, which is that oftentimes now they're in a position which they've never been in before, which is that they can say no. And so often they've been bullied by studios.
Sure.
Where studios have said, like, hey, you're going to play our film on 3 screens. And they're like, but we want to play these 2 other movies. And they're like, then you don't get to play our tentpole movie. This is what used to happen. And so they're just going, yes, sir, constantly. And now they're getting to this place like, well, we have this power to say no to this indie. I do think there's a part of it that is that people like to say no.
I think so, maybe a little bit.
They will be punished. And
they will be punished.
Right,
they'll be punished publicly and privately and everything else. And unfortunately, it's going to take the death of a few theaters before that changes a little bit. And people are going to go, wow. And I think that we'll probably end up seeing, and this is something where I always want to do everything.
Sure.
So there is part of me that's like, maybe I'll open a theater someday. Maybe I'll.
I've always talked about
it. I think it's so cool. It's definitely I know nothing about running a theater. Yeah. I'm sure it's a big pain in the ass, but I'm like, I love the idea of that.
I was actually asked to be a theater manager years ago. That was somebody who was trying to buy a space to make a 2-screen and was like, would you run it with me and like program it? And I was like, yeah, we just didn't end up having it happen. So
sure. Well, it's a lot like on the outside sounds like a great, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's like when you're in high school and you're like, let's make a feature. Okay, how much money do you have?
Yeah.
Who do you know to do it?
True.
No one.
Right.
It's a lot. That's all.
I do think that there's an opportunity here. I think we've seen it with some of these things. Now, the tough thing is that, which we learned the hard way with Round the Decay, which is that we hit 40 theaters at once. January 31st of this year, which is wild. We hit 40 screens across the country, which took...
So how does one, without getting into the nitty gritty, but like how do you go about doing that for people that make features that may not even make it into certain festivals, like at all.
Yeah, we didn't even attempt to go into festivals.
Okay, so this is a great example because I feel like everybody makes shorts and features and stuff for the purpose of running a festival circuit, which again I feel like is.
Yeah, do you want to get on about festivals? Because I have lots of feelings on festivals.
I would love to talk about festivals with you. I have, but I want to know like what's the thought process behind it, and maybe Sean would be involved in stuff like this, and I'd love to talk to him too. Like I said. But what's the thought process behind skipping festivals and going straight to theaters? Who do you reach out to? Like, what is that like?
Yeah, so the big reason when it came to not going to festivals is probably two parts, which is one that, I've been to a bunch of festivals and stuff like that, and a lot of them are great for networking. That's really it. We found cast and crew that we've really latched onto, which is awesome. What does suck going to a festival, especially because Film Freeway is filled with scams at this point, and so many of them just want to do online things that take your money, is that when you do finally get into one that is playing live and you go and see your movie, you see it in a theater with 3 other people, especially if it's a feature.
Yeah.
Nope, because everybody's really just going to the block of shorts that has their movie. That's what they really care about.
You're sitting there with cast and crew from everybody else that's on the screen.
Exactly, unless you're getting into the huge festivals, which we don't bother with because we go, okay, Sundance is 0.0001%, and we don't have a big name star in this.
The other thing that's frustrating to me about festivals in general is that they market to the people that made the movies as opposed to marketing to the public.
Right.
Which is
that seems to be across the board. And also a big thing is like, well, we kind of want to start recouping soon and see if this is viable. And so we said, Sean was big about it. He's like, let's just get into theaters and see what we can do because we're pretty good at filling. We're really good at filling like one screen for sure. Like when it comes to our premiere, we can get that filled. And so we decided to go out there. And so what it was a lot of cold calling, a lot of connecting off of those cold calls through emails, through LinkedIn, stuff like that. The big thing is that you have to get to the film buyers or film programmers, which there are like 10 in the country. It feels like that's only there. And there's ones that basically run 100 different theaters and ones that are all across the board. So if you go to an Imagine Cinema, I'm just throwing one out there.
Sure.
By Lebanon. Imagine Cinema might have the same film buyer as not necessarily a Regal, but whatever your local one is. It might actually be the same film buyer. So the O'Neill Cinemas is the same as, it might be the same as Imagine. And so a lot of times you have to get to those bookers. And once you get to those bookers, you have to pitch to those bookers, which means that you have to have a decent trailer. Most of the time they won't watch the movie unless there's a decent trailer. And when they see
and I think that's normal. Like I would say, what person would watch it? Would go see a movie that they haven't seen the trailer to.
I mean, and we have Round the Decay, and Round the Decay, our trailer's pretty good, and it's a horror movie, which does help. Yeah. And so we don't have a major star in it, and that's okay when it's horror. You can get away with it to a degree when it's horror. And so some of these theaters were like, yeah, you know what? We have one screen for you at the time. Now, of course, we were battling against Companion that weekend, another horror movie that did very well. And then we were also, all of the Oscar movies got pushed to January 31st, which did hurt us. But it was a lot of those cold calls, those emails, constantly following up. We have a giant CRM. And we basically have every contact we've ever made with anybody, actors.
I was going to say, I would imagine your CRM is ridiculous.
Yeah. And it's so much of it is just like, because Sean and I are the ones who operate it mostly, but whenever I have to go in and check on, what's going on with this theater? I go to my deals page and I look on the thing, and then there's all the notes from all of the time that we've spoken to them, so we'll make sure we're not repeating ourselves. And especially when it starts to get to the technicals of like DCP delivery and stuff like that, it goes to me, and then once it's really technical, Topher takes over and does the technical stuff. Sure. So it's been a lot of that, but it was a lot of cold calling, a lot of begging, a lot of promising, a lot of explaining our marketing practices. You will be shut down by the big boys because you don't have marketing budget. That is definitely going to happen. Anybody out here that thinks like, I'm going to get into Regal, unless you have a star, you're not going to get into Regal unless you're putting about $10,000 per screen into advertising. Sure. And they, or AMC's kind of like that. And AMC, I love that they're honest with us. They just tell us like, you need $10,000 a screen, or you need to have Ryan Gosling in the front of it. It's like, we don't have either of those. We understand. We're moving on.
And that's the other thing too. I feel like because it's a very emotional industry.
Sure.
So if you're a writer director like yourself, you're not. And I mean, maybe you're writing all funny, but I would say any genre. It really doesn't matter the genre. Yeah. You are pouring your heart and soul into something.
1,000%.
And saying, I always equate it to when they say like, if you're afraid of public speaking, they'll tell you like, "Phil, just imagine the audience in their underwear."
Yeah.
This is the equivalent of standing on a stage in your underwear, knowing you're in your underwear, and saying, "Judge me."
Yes,
Have fun. That's what making a movie really is, from a writer-director standpoint.
It's horrifying. It's really it's terrifying, and rejection does hurt.
So you're terrified. You make this movie, and then you go bring it to someone and say, "Look at this. What do you think?" And they go, "We're not interested. We're not that it's bad or good. We're not interested."
Yeah.
And you're like, "Ow!"
And not only that, but like we're not even going to give it the time of day.
Sure,
you know, and
exactly.
It's like
You have to have a little bit of a business sense and a little bit of like this isn't personal, it is business. You have to understand that it's like we have to make our bottom line. We don't know you from Adam, so not you, Adam, but like we don't know you from anybody in the world. So like we might as well kind of like it has to be monetarily, like at that point, I would say when you're going to the theater is absolutely a for-profit, business. Like that's their whole point. So if you're just eating up screen time, it makes sense. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And by the way, I now take rejection as a positive because there are three ways it can go. They can say yes, that's the best. They can say no, which sucks, but at least you know. And then the biggest one that we get, 95%, is silence. You just get nothing back, and we will
the worst.
And we will bother. We are very good at bothering people until they tell us no.
I tell people all the time.
Just have to say no.
I have a friend who's looking for a job right now. He just got out of college.
Sure.
And he has his master's, and every job that he's applying to is a quote unquote big boy or big girl, in some cases, big boy job, right? And they all want 5 years experience and whatever else. And I said, but you need to pay your bills. So why not just get a job?
Yep.
Go out to get used to interviewing. Go out and get a job. Yep. Don't, shoot for the stars, sure. And if something, great. If you land on the moon, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, shoot.
Yeah.
Don't keep the gun in the holster because you're afraid of someone saying no or being. Go out. What's the difference? What's the worst? The worst that could happen is they don't say anything at all, or they reject you.
Yeah.
What's the best that could happen? Your whole career could be made with one phone call.
Yeah. Oh, this is why, like, especially this is going to go off a little bit on the side, but when it comes to like getting money for films, which is something that like I'm okay at. I'm not amazing at it, but the big thing is so many people I talk to, they'll be like, "Oh, how do you get money?" And I'll be like, "Well, I just ask people." And they're like, "Yeah, but I don't want to ask them." I'm like, "Well, then you're not going to get any money."
Yeah. That is like then to me, and I'm a little crazy. I know, sure. And people that watch the show know that I'm a little nutty. To me, that says you don't care enough about the production.
Sure.
Because if it was, again, I use an extreme on purpose. Because at the extreme, people go into their animalistic brain and they stop worrying about what other people think. If you had cancer, like extreme bad cancer, you now don't give a shit what anybody else thinks, and you will ask anybody for help. And like, you know what I mean? Like if it comes down to that point where you are really like it's make or break, you don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Get into that brain. You put 20 people through hell telling them how to do your movie. Yeah. You made the movie. Now get out there and promote the film and do it. And don't be afraid of asking people for help and for money, because let me tell you, when you have them on your set, if these are your friends, if these are people in the production, they have no problem asking you for a day rate.
Yeah.
So it's like there's no problem. Yeah. You should have no problem. And if especially, I would say the reverse of that is support everybody.
Yeah,
promote other people, whether you know them or not. Go out there and help and be a part of the actual community, and the community will respond in kind.
I agree.
If this show was, if I never had any guests on and all I did was shit on people and name names and say, "Oh, this Adam Newman guy he sucks," and that Josh Kirk guy he doesn't know his camera from his ass, anything like that, why would I get any sort of benefit out of that?
Oh, yeah.
Individually.
Absolutely.
So why not use it as a platform to build up other people? Why not put you in my Rolodex and say, okay, on the next film, I know he's really good at this.
Yeah.
He said he was good at this. Let's test it out.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. That's the whole point.
I agree.
Is to get together. I think it's great.
And I think the crazy part is when it comes to asking for money, or whether it be asking to get into a theater, the thing is right now, if I needed money from you, the thing is if I don't ask you, the answer is no. So I'm not going to get your money. Now, worst case scenario, I come up to you and I go like, "Hey man, can you give me $100 to help with my movie?" Worst case scenario, you feel slightly uncomfortable and say no. And I go, "Well, it's the same answer I had from not asking you. So why not ask? There's a chance that you say yes."
Right.
And you might just go, "Yeah, of course."
$100, I'll give you $1,000. Like, what do you need the $100 for?
And so frequently people, that when we were doing a fundraiser years ago for a short film, I made a $50,000 short film, and I threw a fundraiser, and I remember I had a business mentor. I was very lucky, and I said, like, I want to charge $50 a ticket, and I hope people spend $200 in the silent auction, in the raffle. And he went, just ask for $250 then. And I went, why? Well, but somebody might say no. He's like, the person that says no to the $250 wasn't going to give you $250 anyway. So just ask for what you need. I went, oh, okay. And then he goes, and ask everybody. And I went, no, but like, I know that person. They won't say yeah. And he was like, you have no idea. You don't know. And
people could have died and bequeathed them $10 million.
Well, and like I ended up asking this girl that worked at the golf course I was at, and she didn't have any money. And I was like, hey, do you want to come? She's like, of course. I love that you make movies. I'll find a way to make it happen. Yeah, I'll buy a ticket right now.
Yeah.
And you go, oh my God, that's right. You have no idea how anybody's going to react to this.
You have no idea about anything.
Yeah, you're so clueless when it comes to these things. And so any person could have money or could have this opportunity. And this is the same thing when it comes to these theaters, is that sometimes you bug them and you bug them and you bug them. And it was great. One time Sean finally he texted an angry text to this one film buyer. I won't name his name. But
no names.
He just said, just tell me you don't want me to keep contacting you because I'm not going to stop.
So this is where this set of brass balls, metaphorical, that I have comes from. I worked before the film industry. I was in the car business.
Sure. Yeah.
Right out of high school, I sold used cars.
Sure.
And I sold a shitload of them. But part of that is it's not about me. If someone doesn't want to buy the car because they can't afford it, it's not personal to me. They can't afford it. Right. You know, or it's the wrong vehicle, or whatever it is.
Thank you. Yeah.
So when I got into this, people are like, "Well, I don't know if I'm like, what are you talking about?" I'm like, I ask everybody for money. I have no problem being like, "Hey, I need this. Hey, I need that." Like that's how in my adult life, that's how I was raised. Sure. Is like, if you need help, you ask for it. If you don't, and then my family too, like very opinionated, like myself.
Sure.
And there was always like, if you floundered or if you did something that was like C or D level because you didn't ask for help, my family is great at telling you that it could have been better had you asked for this or that or the other thing.
That's great, though.
Yeah, well,
to a degree.
Yeah, sure. But at the same time, they're right.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you say, well, I could call this guy, but he's a little bit of a pain in the ass, but he's the best at this and that, but like, I'd rather just figure it out. If you're going to take on that responsibility, you better be ready to flounder. You better be ready to fail, and you can't blame anybody but yourself at the end.
Yeah,
so if you don't ask people for help, it's your fault.
And I think that's just what we took into when it came to this. And like I said, Sean had sent that message after like 6 months, and this guy finally said, "I love your persistence. We'll find a place for your movie." And like that is when I went, okay. Like we will ask and ask and ask, and all they have to say is no, we're not interested, and we will take you off of our sheet.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. So in the business, like you get prompted by your CRM,
sure,
right?
Yep.
And you have to call people, so people will like inquire what the price is online.
Yep.
And then your job is to get them in the door. And so you call and call. I have sent thousands of emails saying it is a requirement of my job that you either file a restraining order or tell me that you do not want me to contact you again. Otherwise, my system will continue to prompt me to reach out to you. So if you don't want to come in, or if you've bought another car, or if you've done something else, just let me know. I don't take personal offense. And if the answer is no, just say no.
Yeah, I always appreciate that. And so that's what a lot of our job was when it came to getting this film like out there, was just like
getting the no,
trying to get to the no, and then every now and then you got a couple yeses. Now, we wouldn't necessarily, if we were doing it all over again, I don't think that we would drop our film on 40 theaters at once, because we're not a big boy. We don't have marketing. Our marketing budget was, not even 5 figures. We didn't have that because we had put so much money into the movie, and we're a small company. If I was going to do it now, I do think that there are two kind of routes, which is kind of the roadshow and kind of the event, which is kind of becoming popular, I think, a little bit, and which means, of course, it will die off relatively quickly. But you look at things like, Hundreds of Beavers. You see that movie?
I didn't.
Okay, so Hundreds of Beavers, basically, it is a black and white film that is very slapstick. It's silent, but it's basic. It's almost like an hour and 40-minute Looney Tunes cartoon with human beings. And this guy, basically, he made the movie for $250,000, and then he took it on a roadshow for a year and a half, and he made $2.2 million off of it. And that's kind of how you, now when I say a roadshow, it goes, okay, we're in Columbus, Ohio on this Friday, and then, Saturday we do Cincinnati, and then Sunday we do another Ohio, and then next week we move on and we go to Massachusetts, and we do a Boston, or we do a Providence, and we hit those places. And he did that and wandered around and showed his movie. And of course, the movie has to be good. That's a big part of this thing.
Oh,
so
sure.
It has to capture people. I think there's a chance of doing that. And also, I'm friends with the director of this movie that is doing really well in Canada right now. They made for like $15,000. It's called the Pee Poo Poo Man. And it's kind of like a mockumentary of about this guy who just goes around and throws buckets of piss and shit on people in a city and trying to figure out who it is. And this movie is doing wildly well. And it's because what he's doing is he's just hitting every city in Canada. And he goes there and he markets specifically for that city.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
So, and you may not know the answer, and that's okay
Sure.
too. So if based on what you're saying,
Yeah.
if there's only, let's say, 10 buyers for the United States,
Yeah.
How would, right?
Yeah, sure.
Could be 20, could
Yeah,
be
yeah.
50. There's 10.
Yeah.
For the purpose of conversation, there's 10.
Yep.
How would one go about, because it's not like you're walking into a theater
Yep.
and saying, get me the owner, you know?
Yeah.
So how do you do a road show in that case then?
So what we would obviously do in our road show situation is, one is that we go off the context that we already have. That's a big part of it.
Well,
too.
sure.
When it comes to a road show, my expectation would be like, let's hit the places that have given us good success and probably are more niche, because they're truly the more niche theaters, and most of the mom and pops and stuff like that are kind of the places where they're more willing to take a risk. And so they'll go like, I have to play Lilo and Stitch and I have to play Mission Impossible, but I have one more screen and I'll give it a shot. Especially if you can come to them with a marketing plan.
So that would be my next question.
Yeah.
Would be, what's the marketing plan for a road show?
I would say everybody should.
Generally speaking.
Yeah, no, of course. But I do,
to go completely
I do think
baseball,
that
but
people need to go check out Peter Higuchi, who has been doing this for quite some time now. I believe he was the one that kind of initiated this stuff with Hundreds of Beavers. He just did it with his movie, The Occult, and Jay Horton's movie, A Hard Place, where they basically have been hitting drive-ins, because drive-ins will be like, we'll do 2 horror movies back to back, because we'll just get an audience. And so you just have to find the little holes. What I love about some of these theater owners or these bookers, we ended up playing over in Palm Springs, and I ended up getting in touch with him. He's a great dude. And he said, like, I really want to support independent films. I'm going to be honest. He's like, I have 25 theaters, and like, I've got one for you. And it's because I know there's a horror audience there, and we always do well with horror indies.
That's cool.
And so I will
Seems
put
like
you.
a cool career to have too. To be the guy who like knows where stuff goes.
And then
That's
like
cool.
to be honest with, and to be like, and I was like, hey, we also are sending out these cowboy movies as well. He goes, cowboy movies don't do well for us, and so I'm just letting you know that it's not an option unless down the line things change.
Yeah.
But he's like, I know my audience in certain pockets of this place. And so you kind of try to do stuff like that. And then, of course, when it comes to a roadshow, because the movie I'm working on now, I'm in we're about 14 months from shooting it, is a fantasy film. It's like a cozy fantasy film, and I love fantasy cinema, but it's very niche, obviously. It has a rapid fan base, but it's also that fan base. There's not a lot of bleed over necessarily. And so my thing is like, how do I get you to get off your couch to come and see this type of movie, or how do I get any person to? And it's like, okay, well, you have to independently market to some of these places that are willing to take risks. You have to have a marketing plan, especially if it's going to be really, really focused in that one area, especially if you roadshow, which is, I'm about to buy a bus in order to potentially do a roadshow type of thing.
Which is very cool, yeah, sure.
Yeah, just so that we can hit these pockets and do things like Pee Pee Poo Poo Man and Hundreds of Beavers and The Occult in A Hard Place, and really find these places that oftentimes, like you said, I don't think everybody responds in the way that you mentioned they should when you have cancer. I'm gonna get a little personal here. No. In that my father recently passed away about 4 months ago. Thank you. And the doctors came to us and were like, your dad should go to hospice, and he can live a great last month of his life. And he chose not to, because he thought he was going to get through it. And instead, he just had a miserable last 2 or 3.
Which is rough.
Which sucks, and you don't want that to be the case, but because he thought, like, I'm going to come out of this, and he didn't, and it sucks and it hurts. But what I do like, what it does seem like, is that some theaters are like, I'm just going to do with what I've known this whole time, and they're going to fall because of it, because Hollywood, as you mentioned, is dead or is in its dying gasp. But there's 10% of those theaters that are like, let's give it a shot. Let's try to do something cool. And because of that, if you can get them passionate about it too, they will promote the movie as well. One of these movies that we do, that we have helped get into theaters, is this movie called Harson's Island Revenge. And it's like a Prohibition era drama that was not made for a very small budget. So it doesn't have a huge fan base. However, they were able to get the city that it was filmed in behind it. And that movie made 5 figures in a weekend at one theater, and which is like, if you can do that and you can attack your post-production and when your film comes out in the same level in which, I think this is what it all leads back to, in the same level that you attacked the making of, right? Where everybody kind of glorifies the making of. Sure. If you can be that passionate about your post work as your production work, as your pre-production, then you can have this fully realized thing. And that's when the money starts to come in. And I think that's probably the way that cinema changes a little bit. Indies, I think, are the next wave. I think that it's going to be tough for Hollywood to come out of this.
And so this is why I bring up all this marketing stuff. And normally, I talk a lot about the production side of things or even pre-pro stuff. But I feel like because the industry's changing and because we're going to be seeing a lot more WillCos and Dreamscapes and things of that nature, it's important to kind of like be not a one-man band, essentially, but like a production company traditionally doesn't do marketing and distribution.
No, of course not.
They just make movies.
Right. That's changing.
There used to be just post-production companies that like you make your movie and then you take all your footage to the post-production company.
Yeah.
So now we're already seeing that a production company will take everything from concept to finished product. And now we're going to end up seeing them also need to market their films and all that stuff. I think everything you've told me so far is amazing. And congratulations with Dreamscape.
Thank you.
Obviously, I'm very sorry to hear about your father.
Thank you.
And I'm sure you'll be very proud. And this is an amazing journey that you're on. 40 theaters, even regardless of
no.
any of the other stuff. That's awesome.
I felt really bad. The day it happened. The day we released in theaters, I woke up and I didn't feel different. I thought it was going to. And at the time, my dad was going through. My dad was on his way out.
That's
It
rough.
was within a month, about a month later that he passed. And so it was really, really rough. The reviews started coming in and they were good. And then there'd be one bad one and I'd hyperfixate on the bad one. And then it was on Sunday and I was with my AD/editor, Topher. And we were standing in the lobby of the theater and talking about it. And he's like, I don't care how much money this movie makes right now. We got into cinemas. And so I just say, for a moment, we got to dance in the Coliseum with the gods, right? Which was really cool. And now how do you do it? And how do you also make your own Coliseum? And what you've been bringing up is really great. I want to share something from one of my favorite filmmakers. One of my favorite filmmakers is Jim Cummings.
Okay.
Who makes really independent stuff. And he tells this story about Ed Kemper, the murderer. Go with me here. And so...
I love murder stories.
Okay, so Ed Kemper...
I don't love murderers, but I love their stories.
Right, and so Ed Kemper used to show up at college campuses. And because back in the day, people would be looking for rides to get back to their dorm.
And he was just such a generous man.
Yeah, and so what he would do, he would show up and someone would be trying to get a ride. And Kemper... Kemper would go, where are you going? And he'd go, I'm just going across town over to my dorm. Sure. And M. Kemper would look at his watch and then would go, you're not going to make it. And that person would basically beg Ed Kemper to get in his car, which Ed Kemper knew he was going to sodomize and kill them. And so, Jim Cummings says, if you're going to do this, what you should be comfortable with is walking long distances alone, walking together with a team, or building your own car, because it's much easier to do that than get sodomized in somebody else's. And that's what was going on with the film industry in a lot of ways, is that somebody was basically like, oh, you want to make a movie? You're inconveniencing me already. Now I feel like I owe everything to them, and that's going away. Like you said, production houses are turning into, they're doing every stage of this thing, and it's the necessary steps in order to do it. And I think the best way to do that is build communities of specialized people who give a shit about the stuff that they're doing.
Yeah.
Find ways to make it. Obviously, you want to be making it the cheapest way possible. You want to make money off of it, but it's also to get things made. That's the most important thing.
Right.
And however you need to do that, if that means that it's a smaller teams in that production process and figuring out inventive ways to both fundraise. That's what we're doing right now. We have a big fundraiser coming up in January. I haven't really announced it yet, so I can't talk about it a lot. But It's finding creative ways to fundraise, finding creative ways to market, to get your film out there. We haven't cracked the code, but we've started to, or we at least think that we've climbed one rung up on the ladder, and hopefully we'll help people like WillCo or anybody else be like, this is how we did it, and here's how we failed, and also here's how we succeeded. Take everything we just told you, and you figure out the next path, and when you guys take a step up off of that, then you are obligated to then go to the next people and be like, your turn to give the hand up, and you learn from our mistakes.
Well, sure, and I was just going to say, if there's any way that WillCo can help you or help Dreamscape in any way, we more than happy to.
Oh yeah, we're going to be talking.
I'm sure something tells me. Which this is not the first time this conversation has happened either. You know, which is good.
Sure.
But no, I absolutely love everything. I really appreciate you coming down. I think you have a great vision. I think the future is bright. And every time I have someone in that's new that I've never met before, I always leave the conversation like giddy like a schoolgirl, being like, oh, we're doing the right thing. It makes me feel like so validated to know that there are other people out there that feel as passionate as I do about independent film, and that it really is what it was in the 1920s. You know, when like Buster Keaton was like, yeah, I just want to like jump on the front of a train, and like that might be cool. And like a lot of people are still in that mindset. And this like gatekeeping Hollywood crap is finally it's eating itself. It's just falling apart, and I couldn't be more grateful. To be honest with you, I couldn't be more grateful.
I hear you.
I think the future's bright. I've had a great time speaking with you. Thank you so much for coming in. Is there can we plug you or plug Dreamscape or
really quickly, I guess. So I'm director Adam Newman on Instagram. You can try to find me on Facebook, but my name is Adam Newman.
Oh yeah, never hit me up on Facebook either. By the way, I do not use Facebook ever.
Then we are Dreamscape Productions LLC on Instagram and also on Facebook if you care. And then, if you go onto there, you'll start to see some of our projects that are branched off of, like Round the Decay, which is not hit streamers yet, won't for a little bit. We're still going to do a couple little showings here and there. Our film Everwinter Night is on, like Tubi and Amazon and all of those type of things. And then, we're gearing up for our next projects. There's a chance I'm directing something that I didn't write in September. I'm gearing up for my project, which has an Instagram and stuff like that. You can link. I haven't announced it yet because the project isn't really alive yet. We're still kind of in that development phase. But yeah, please follow up. Anybody that's watching this, please follow and all that type of stuff. And truly, I say this all the time, and every now and then I get it, which is really, really nice, which is that if anybody ever has questions about any of this type of stuff, we want to knock down the gates. And we're very lucky that we have gotten to a place where we've gotten into 40 cinemas and stuff like that. We have a little experience now. And so I want everybody that feels comfortable, or don't even feel comfortable, just
even if you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, if you feel uncomfortable, just do it. Just ask me a question.
That's what I'm saying. I hit you up. I don't know who you are. You were referred, sure, because I was looking for guests, but at the same time, like I looked through, I'm like, this quality stuff. It looks good. Maybe I'll say yes. I also hate the way Instagram does requests for messages. You never get notified.
Despise it.
Never get notified. Everybody's always responding 3 months later going, I'm sorry, I didn't see this. All that kind of stuff. But thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. Everybody go follow Adam and Dreamscape and watch their movies.
Yeah, that would be great.
And ladies and gentlemen, Adam Newman, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.